So I've got a question. What has shaped you the most? Your roots or your routes? Even the word route has two pronunciations, root and route. And maybe that's fitting, for perhaps our routes shape us more than our roots. Welcome, beautiful people, to the Lost and Local podcast. This is your boy, Adam. We've got another solo podcast today. Don't worry, Hannah will be joining us next week. I definitely miss not having my co-host. Now, if you're watching this video feed on YouTube, you'll know that I'm back in the Traveling On studio. Yes, I am back in Seoul, South Korea. It's so nice to be back home where my roots began. This topic of roots and routes. Roots give us the origin where we came from, while routes give us kind of the meaning and help us truly define who we are. Now, this is going to be a short solo podcast today, but it's just something that came to mind as I traveled back to the States this past month. Of course, this podcast is primarily a TCK, third culture kids and their experiences, but I feel like this idea of roots and routes can certainly resonate with all of us. Where we began doesn't necessarily define who we are presently or what we can become as the future unfolds. So where do you call home? Is it where you were born or where you were raised in your formative years? Or maybe now in your adult life, do you call that place home? A TCK author named Pico Iyer, he wrote a book about third culture kids, and I'm going to quote from his book: "Home has less to do with a piece of soil than with a piece of soul." I think that's really pretty insightful. What defines us? When I went back to the States this past month and visited family, I made sure to connect with all 5 of my siblings. And it's interesting that even though we all technically were raised in the same city and household in our formative years, all of us kind of took separate paths after leaving the metaphorical nest. Some stayed close and others moved away. But in many ways, I feel like it was their routes in life that ultimately formed who they were. Now, some people are very proud to state where they came from, their physical roots, whether by ethnicity or region. Others like to think it was their routes in life that shaped who they are. So which one are you? Visiting the small town I was raised in, it seems like a foreign place. Every time I go back to visit my dearest mother, I am back in the town that I was raised from the age of 3 up until the end of my high school years. And I always revel and think, how the heck did I ever survive in this town? But I have to admit that whether for good or for ill, it did shape what I would eventually become. In some ways, I learned what not to do, but I also learned to appreciate the good things too. And each of those transitions, at least for me, growing up in Indiana, I moved out to Oregon, lived there for a total of 15 years. I lived in SoCal for 8 years. I live now in Seoul for over 7 years. And each of those routes or roots in life really helped shape who I am today. But I feel like my routes brought me back to my roots, which is not always the case for all of us. And coming full circle, for at least for me, it was very healing and confirming for me. I've been a sojourner for so long. In the latter half of my life, I finally decided to put my metaphorical roots back into the soil that I came from. While I always will continue to love traveling and going down new routes or routes in life, I feel like I'm rooted here in Korea until the Lord calls me home. And I suppose each of us have to embrace both our roots and our routes. Not all of you have to come back to your roots to be at peace. Life really is just a journey. Each of us are sojourners. embrace change, appreciate the ups and the downs of life. We all have future routes that will continue to challenge us to become better people. And with that being said, that's the podcast for today. I know it was a short one, but it was just something that was on my mind as I was traveling. And I think traveling is good for the soul, but it also helps you to step back and remember where you came from and all the journeys that you've taken. So I encourage you all, whether you're traveling or whether you're just stuck in the same place that you've been living for a while, really kind of chew on that, your roots and your routes in life. And I guess ultimately just appreciate both of them and glean whatever you can for good or for ill. But at least for me, I'm thankful for both. In the meantime, you all, I'm excited to have Hannah back next week, and hope you all are doing well. God bless. Peace.